Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women. And I'm just going to dive right in because I can't believe what we're going to talk about today is something that we still have to talk about, but we do, and I'm grateful to have expertise here to help us do it.
I am too. I'm Mary Olivieri. Happy to be here as well. Yes, I also cannot believe that, Liz, but our guest today, we're talking about something very powerful, and I'm really excited to have her.
Yes. I'm Liz Brohan, and I'm just going to tell you what the topic is today, because this episode is entitled, The Price of Being a Woman at Work.
Ka-ching.
Ka-ching. But the other shoe is a good shoe, and the women fighting back. We got a fighter today.
That's right. We're talking about something powerful, equal pay, advocacy, and what it really means to dedicate your life to advancing opportunities for women.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're so thrilled because our guest has had more than 4 decades of breaking down these barriers. So we're excited to hear her whole story about how she helps women rise. Let me introduce. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Barb. She'll go by Barb. So.
Okay.
Barb Young is with us today. She practiced law for over 43 years. Pretty darn amazing, and had just an exciting career. So she even spent a few years, like 3 years, right, in the Attorney General's office.
Actually, 5 years.
5 years in the Attorney General's office. That's pretty incredible, too.
Wow.
And then after that, you were with another law firm, right? I think their name was Golan, Christie and Taglia. That sound right?
That's my last law firm.
That's your last law firm.
Where I practiced for over 20 years.
Great. And you were expert at bankruptcy laws and business litigation and all kinds of stuff that makes my head explode. So,
well, oh my gosh, same with me, Liz. But honestly, that's only part of your story, right, Barb? You're also the founder of something I think is incredibly important for our listeners to hear about today, which is Equal Pay Day Chicago. And we know that you're a fierce advocate for women's economic equality. So active in women's rights organizations. I hear you've also traveled to all 7 continents. You're an avid scuba diver and someone who still finds time to lead a book club. I don't know how you do all of that.
No kidding. Well, welcome to the couch.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
Barbara, tell us a little bit more of your 43 years, your remarkable experience as a lawyer. When you look back on your career, what are some of the legal victories that come to mind?
Let me start by saying I don't know that I always intended to be a lawyer. I loved school. I loved learning. I loved the challenge. And I never found it difficult. It just came easy to me.
Nice.
My mom was a teacher. She taught 2nd and 3rd grade and loved teaching little kids to read. But somehow school just was pretty easy. And my brother was 2 years older than me, and he decided to go into pre-med. And I said, oh, okay, maybe I'll do pre-med too. And he said, oh, I don't think you'd like it. You should go pre-law. That was about how much thought went into selecting a career.
I love that. You said your mom was a teacher, right? Yeah. And even when I was a young girl, my parents told me I could be a teacher or a nurse. Those were my 2 choices.
That was your only options. That's right.
And so I just love that you were like, forget it. I'm going to practice law. So
exactly.
When you began practicing law, there weren't that many many women in the profession, correct?
Definitely not. And not that many that stuck with it.
I see.
I chose Loyola School of Law here in Chicago because they were the only school that was specializing in litigation training. They had brought in these experts in whether it was public defenders or prosecutors or personal injury attorneys. And they taught a 1-week course where you did openings and closings and put in evidence. And by the last day, you actually did a trial and you got graded on your trial. And I loved it. And I knew
it sounds like a blast.
I knew I wanted to be a litigator from the get-go. I'm enough competitive. I like to win. And as I learned in my legal career, if I'm not going to win, I'm going to get a darn good settlement.
Nice. Love it.
So I just love that.
Did you run into as being probably, I mean, how many women were in your program when you were attending?
Believe it or not, it was actually 50%. And this
Wow,
was
that's exciting.
in 1979 to 82, 50% women. But somehow I never saw that many actually practicing. So sure,
Gotcha.
some went into real estate or family law. I get that. But more than not, they would join a law firm and then, you know, whether it was a lack of promotion, whether it was choosing family over career, whether the firms themselves were not willing to promote the women, they somehow, you know, left the profession. So now, hopefully, more women are choosing to stick with it and build a career.
And we're glad that you were scrappy and stuck with it for sure.
Yeah, going to do that. And so my first job was with the Attorney General's office. And I actually clerked there my 3rd year of law school. And there's a program called the 711 license where even before you pass the bar, you can go to court and you can argue cases. And so I was actually practicing in court before I even passed the bar. And I love that. And I'll just tell you probably the highlight of my law career, or my experience at the Attorney General's office. We had a case where this anti-abortion group wanted to get the names and addresses of doctors providing abortion and abortion-related services to women on Medicaid. And my chief, who was older and much more conservative, said, "Oh, Barb, you're young. You're a woman. Here, handle this case."
Wow.
And so I got to write the briefs. I got to go to court. I got to argue in the Illinois Supreme Court as just a fledgling attorney. And it was an amazing experience.
I can't believe it went that far.
It went that far. And the court actually said that because they were using public dollars, the public is entitled to that information, but they couldn't get any patient information. And the reason they admitted they wanted this information was so that they could harass the doctors and have them stop performing these services. But didn't ever happen. They didn't get the information, and it was all good.
Yeah, that would have just promoted a witch hunt.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Good for you.
That's so impressive. It has to feel good to you to know that you had a part in doing something like that. Now,
Absolutely.
and I know, I'm sure our listeners, some are on one side of the fence or the other where that issue is concerned, and that's cool. Everybody deserves to have their point of view. But when it comes to the legality and the rights and the laws surrounding this, I think that that's very important. So I appreciate your voice in that conversation. Did this? You mentioned a little earlier on. You were talking about like you like to win, right? And you're competitive, right? And we mentioned also that you began Equal Pay Day Chicago.
I did.
Is that right? And I love this, like, of course, we know what equal pay is. I mean, I definitely know what a glass ceiling feels like myself, right? But was that part of it too, that passion, like the right to have equal pay, I'm assuming, for women, correct?
Actually, let me explain how I got into that, because that was more like maybe 15 years ago.
Okay.
So my whole career, and even I would say in high school, I'm a joiner. I joined a lot of organizations, and as a practicing attorney, I had to go get clients, right? So what's my marketing plan going to be? My plan was to join women's groups like League of Women Voters, AAUW, Business and Professional Women. And I found that every single one of those groups, some believed in politics, certain, issues, but the issue that they all felt in common was equal pay.
There you go.
And women's right to work, women's right to be promoted, women's right to have a career. And so about 15 years ago, I met a woman named Evelyn Murphy, who was the lieutenant governor of the state of Massachusetts. And she wrote a book called Getting Even, Why Women Don't Get Paid Like Men. And what she said, which was eye-opening to me, is that women don't negotiate. Women don't negotiate. When you go to a job interview and you get an offer, you're so tickled, you're so excited, you're so proud to have that offer that you say, I'll take it. And you don't stop to say, well, how much are you going to pay me? And how much does the market pay for this job?
Yeah.
And so it's really true. And I found that in my career where I got to hire young women and young men to join my law firm is the men negotiated.
Yeah.
And the women did not. And so it became sort of a mission of mine to not only fight for equal pay, but to encourage women everywhere to think more about what they're worth. And there are tools like salary.com and some other things where you can put in what career you're going to be doing, where, how much experience you have, what your education is, and it'll tell you, because location is everything, how much you should be making. And you can also research yourself by talking to other people out in the field doing whatever you're doing to find out what this job would pay before you go into the interview. And in the interview, you can negotiate. And
that's great advice.
And women are too timid to do that.
No, I don't think women are timid about that any longer. I'll tell you a quick story. The other part of this issue that I find fascinating is that it was out in the open. You know, it was not a hidden issue by any means. I remember as a young woman, I had just gotten a job at a large advertising agency. I walked into an all-agency meeting, and I made the comment to the man standing next to me, like, wow, there's a lot of women here. And he said, this was a high-ranking executive at the agency. He said, yeah, that's because they work really hard for 5 years, and you don't have to pay them as much.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It was experience. Yeah.
Right. It was an experience. My jaw dropped. So I'm hoping it's not kind of that raw any longer, that women are doing a better job of being pre-prepared.
Right.
Of negotiating.
And I
Yes.
think there's also a misconception that it's because of the careers that women choose. And that's not true. So it's not that women are teachers making less or nurses making less or servers at restaurants or maids or home helpers. It's in every career you can see that where there's men and women, the men are getting paid more.
I know they are, because back in the day when we all got our paychecks, we had to go deposit them at the ATM. And I would go with my colleagues and stand in line. And I stood behind a man, had the exact same title as me, did the exact same work as me, and I could see his paycheck was bigger.
And not only that, but it was legal. It was legal for companies to say that employees cannot talk about salary with other employees. And then it was actually built into policy that these handbooks, personnel handbooks, that it's a firing offense to talk about your salary. But in
we've
Illinois,
seen that for sure, Barb. Yeah,
but in Illinois,
and I'll tell you my story, Liz. Like, you're at the ATM depositing a check. I remember, I remember going to my boss and saying that I really needed a raise. I was advocating for a raise, and she said to me, and it was a woman, and she said, "Well, we're going to pay this guy who had the same level as me more, because he needs to provide for his family.
No.
And I looked at her and I said, I'm the mom and the dad in my family. I'm a single mom. I have to provide for my family too. And I don't have a dual income. So that is not a fair argument. I couldn't believe it.
I
Right.
hope you just asked for both salaries. I need a mom's salary and a dad's
And
salary.
a dad's salary, exactly.
it.
But I think it's important for the listeners to hear. You said some really great nuggets of wisdom here, Barb, that I want to just circle back on. You mentioned about being a joiner. And when you join, it's so important. And on this podcast, we have talked about networking and the importance of that. But I just want to underscore that. Like, even you could be an introvert, extrovert, it doesn't matter. Just joining, just rubbing elbows with other people might get you to some good places. And you also talked about like knowing how to negotiate. I love that you offered like salary.com as a tool. So for our listeners, think about that. Pop on there. Make sure you're getting paid what you're worth. Now, when you talk about Equal Pay Day Chicago, so that's 15 years ago, what do you think you've accomplished, or share your accomplishments with us since in the last 15 years, in a nutshell?
In a nutshell.
How's it going?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is that the concept of having an equal pay day was not my invention, but other organizations before me. And the concept, which people don't recognize, is that they picked that day because on average, based on, let's say, 86 cents on the dollar, a woman would have to work the entire prior year and an extra 2 or 3 months in order to come even with what a man makes. And that was the beginning of Equal Pay Day as a day. But then I got the idea that we could have a big event downtown Chicago, Daly Center Plaza. You think all the office buildings that are surrounding you, and have all those women come together during the noon lunch hour and just have amazing speakers, inspirational speakers, educational speakers, and recognize the fact that we're not getting paid what we should. And so that was kind of the beginning. And because I'm in all these organizations, I wanted them all to participate. So I said, you can join.
You brought the joining
Equal
together.
Pay Day
Yes.
Chicago. We're going to, and I wanted every organization or individuals to be a member, which they still can do, for no money. All you have to do is agree to come to the rally and bring people to the rally and promote the rally. And so that's what we do. And many of those organizations are now seated on the dais. Many of them have speakers. We also invited the government officials because we wanted them not only to answer to us, but to hear us and make change in law if they could. So we've had governors, lieutenant governors, Tony Preckwinkle, the
Love her,
Cook County
you bet.
president. So many people have come to our rally, and it's just amazing. And so every year it grew and grew and grew. And a couple years ago, when I kind of retired, I had a nice succession plan. I have younger women than me are continuing to carry the
Nice.
torch, and I'm so proud of that. Because I feel like you haven't finished the job unless you get somebody to take over when you can't do it anymore.
Find out when it is each year. Is there a website we can visit?
Absolutely. So this year's rally is March 26th at the Daly Center Plaza. All you have to do is come. There's no registering. There's no fee. 2 years ago, when I did kind of retire from it, we had 60 organizations that are all part of our coalition. And so it's more than a day. It's more than one event. It's a coalition. And then just one more quick thing that I'm also very proud of is we also started a scholarship program. And so we're asking college kids to apply. And one of the things we want them to do is write a short essay about what equal pay means to me. And if they were going to bring attention and awareness to the fact that there is a wage gap, how would they do it? And so they're using multimedia
you need to publish all
and
those
marketing
answers
to do that. And then the day that I kind of retired, The group that was left in the organization in the planning committee named the scholarship for me. So
Love
it's
it.
it's the
Oh.
Barbara Young Equal Pay Scholarship, and we've had 2 years of winners, and I'm very, very proud of
That's
that
a beautiful
too,
legacy.
because young people need to know.
Absolutely. And I do hope you publish those answers, because I think that would make a fascinating book.
Absolutely.
You know? So I wanted to ask you about those younger women that you're bringing on board as your succession plan. So what are the barriers that they face now that you've done all this groundbreaking work and made this a huge event and not just a day?
Yeah, I think what I see is a couple things. So one is it's kind of back in the day, we live to work. I'm sure you've heard that expression. We live to work. And yes, I have a family and children, grown children and everything. But our career was the most important thing that we were doing in back in that day. And now, to their credit, young people are working to live. And so while they might have a job or even a career, the money they make and the benefits that they get are adding to their life, and they're using it to travel more, to experience more, to work a little bit less. And work-life balance is important. And so I'm not sure whether they're still pushing the pedal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Pedal to the metal, metal to the pedal, pushing their careers as hard as they can. And I'll give you just one example. When I was leaving my law firm, I invited all the women attorneys, many of whom I hired and mentored and I'm very, very proud of, to sit down to lunch, and I gave them a list of all the organizations that I'm networking in. Do they meet in the morning? Do they meet at lunch? Are they co-ed? Are they just women? Because I have taken leadership positions in most of them, we have a good reputation. They know me. They know my firm. It's great for networking. It's great for getting referrals and building a referral network. All of that. And I said, just pick one, just pick two, and I'll make an introduction for you. And maybe just one or two reached out to me and said that would be great. Most of them are just
They're not
so
joiners.
interested.
I know.
They don't want to have to worry about clients and marketing and becoming partner and all those things that seem so important.
Their priorities are very much different. We've chatted about this on this podcast quite a bit, about how many of them will cross a bridge instead of, climb a ladder.
Exactly.
And I admire everything they're doing, but I did worry in everything you just told me that if their priority is work-life balance, where's the priority for equal pay? Because I think that should be at the top of the list.
Absolutely. And they're working as hard as the men.
Yeah, they are.
Still, because the men are also seeking work-life balance, but yet they're still not getting paid equally.
And so, I mean, come on now, right? We are in 2026, for the love of Pete. I just want to encourage anybody who cares about this to do everything you can to make a difference in this regard. We are powerhouses as women. We get stuff done. We need to be compensated equally for it. I think that your tip about really being prepared to go in and negotiate and not be afraid to ask for what it is you're worth, I think it's incredibly important.
And I also build into my advice that you should also be prepared at review time. Have a list of your accomplishments. Have a list of what you're going to do for the company or for your boss. Be prepared to talk about that. And don't just negotiate salary. Negotiate benefits.
Benefits, yep.
If you want to work remotely, if you want a computer at home, if you want vacation time, all of it comes into play. It's more than just a paycheck.
Oh, and you've got to put a value to each of those things, right? I mean, I think that's what people don't understand. If you could get an extra 5 days of paid time off, there's value to that, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe you can negotiate on that side if they're not willing to actually hit your salary or to the salary to which level you want to go to. You have to look at that full benefits package, everything that you're getting. So what are you really getting paid? Not just salary. And each of those is an opportunity to negotiate, in my opinion.
And your employer is not going to pull back the offer because you asked. If anything, they'll have more respect for you. They might say, well, I can't pay you this, but I'll pay you that. Or if they say, I'm sorry, I can't pay you more, then your answer should be, well, how about in 6 months? We'll reevaluate and you'll see how good I'm doing and what I'm doing for your business. And then maybe we'll reconsider. So even a no is not necessarily a no.
Barb, I'm getting the sense that this is a grassroots effort, that it has to happen at the individual level. But is there anything that can be leveraged at a higher corporate level that would just make the playing field more, equal?
Well, there's two things that I would say. So one is that the way the Congress and our state legislature are approaching it is transparency. And they're asking employers to keep data on what they pay men and women doing the same job and publishing that data. Because for a long time, that information was secret. They had no obligation to post that information. So that's very helpful. The second thing I would say is more of a societal view, and that is, what do we value? And it's great that a lawyer or a doctor or even a teacher might make a nice salary. But what about those people that are taking care of children or the elderly,
caregivers,
or the mental health, professionals?
There's no equality there. My
there's
sister
very
is a social
little
worker.
pay there.
She doesn't make enough money. What she does every day, week after week, year after year, is really life-saving. She is really helping their children at high school ages as the social worker at the school. And I'm appalled by what she's getting paid. It just does not seem to equate.
Right.
I mean, I've been in marketing for years. I know what I got paid. It's a pretty decent salary. Thanks, Liz. But I compare what I do every day to what my sister does every day. There's a value ratio that's off, in my opinion.
It's totally distorted.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to recognize what are our priorities and what do we want to value. And it's not athletes and it's not politicians. Right.
And it's not necessarily CEOs either. But I did want to ask you, since you brought up this whole legality of transparency and having to report salaries, where do we go to find that information?
Well, you can write your congressman and you can write your state legislator and you can say, I want the law to require employers to publish information about salary, men and women, and also other people too, like there's, a racial disparity as well.
Yes.
They do publish, the federal government publishes the difference between men and women, the wage gap, but there's also a Black wage gap, there's a Hispanic wage gap, there's a Native American wage gap, and unfortunately they get harsher and harsher as you go down the line.
I don't doubt that for a minute. I think that's great advice. Are there any states where this is already law? I
think there are. I'm not sure I know exactly who they are, but definitely.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
So if we can get something like that passed, it's a great start, at least to have the understanding of what those disparities are among everyone that you just mentioned.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then one final thing, I don't know if you guys heard about Lily Ledbetter, who recently passed away. And there's a movie about her life that came out, but she was definitely a hero of mine. I did have the opportunity to hear her speak and to meet her.
Tell our listeners a little bit about her.
Yeah, so Lily Ledbetter was in Texas, and she was working for Goodyear Tire. And it wasn't until she was getting ready to retire that somebody anonymously put a note in her locker that had a list of how much people in her department were being paid that were doing the same job as she was. and
Yep.
showed how she was getting paid so much less. So she hired legal counsel and they sued Goodyear, and she won several $1 million verdict, but it got appealed because this was the ruling that you have to file a complaint with the EEOC within 180 days of the incident, whatever the incident
loophole.
happens to be. And so they said the fact that she worked there for 20 years, every paycheck was like a new incident. So she wasn't going to get paid for the discrepancy that she lost in
All those
salary
years.
over 20 years. And
Oh, my
it
God.
wasn't until the Supreme Court said, yeah, there's nothing we can do. That's what the law was. She doesn't get that the Congress passed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, and it was the very first piece of legislation that Barack Obama signed into law. She was there. Lilly Ledbetter was there when he signed it. He was surrounded by all these women's organizations that were, fighting for her. And prospectively now, they did away with that. And so you can get compensation for all of that if you didn't know, because she had no idea, if you didn't know that you were being unfairly paid. And so that was a major, major victory. Did it give Lilly Ledbetter any compensation? No. But she had the pride to know that she changed the law forever for women and minorities.
She broke a
I
huge-
bet you Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have probably loved that.
Yeah, she had the dissenting
And
vote.
it's funny you say that, because in that decision where the Supreme Court ruled against her, Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote a dissent.
Yep.
And it's an amazing, very strong words, as you would anticipate, about this is how discrimination happens. This is the insidious way that it happens, because they never tell anybody. You don't know. They just get away with it.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're so right.
Yeah. We need that movie. We definitely need that story to get out there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think that they had, I think there was some movie that was going to be made, or was made with Patricia Clarkson in it back in October of 2024, if I recall, about Lilly Ledbetter. Yeah, so I think that's great. But see, what you're talking to about is she is being a trailblazer and a mentor and paving the way for people who come behind us, right? And there is that aspect of which we all do that. I mean, I'm saying the three of us women have done that for the younger generation, right? To bring them up. Can you recall, Barb, who might have done that for you? Like when you were younger, was there anybody who really helped mentor you and spark that inside of you? Or was it just your brother telling you to go to law school?
I think I did have supportive partners, but they were men.
That's okay.
There weren't women partners for me to look to. But it was important for me when I was able to step into that role to do that mentoring and supporting. I'll give you one example. I was sitting in a review with another woman partner and a man partner, and our associate had come in, and we told her, "You're doing a great job. You're doing great things for the firm. You're brilliant. You're hardworking, and so we're going to give you this increase, whatever it was, 5%, 10%. We're going to give you this increase." And this associate actually used that opportunity to negotiate and said, "Well, I just want you to know that I've researched how much attorneys are making, and my husband is working from home. He's doing a self-publishing business, so he's doing that. And so I really think that I should be paid a little bit more. And so I am going to ask that the partners reconsider and maybe give me a little bit more." Okay. So I inside was beaming with pride.
Nice.
I was so happy that she did that. She goes out of the room. I look at the other two and I'm thinking, isn't this great? And the man was stunned. He didn't know what to make of it. And the woman was like, I think that's awful that she would ask for more money. We got her this great raise, and I don't understand why she's not happy. And so I did used the moment for educating and
Teachable
said,
moment.
teaching moment, and said, no, this is how she's advocating for herself is the same way that she advocates for our clients. And we should support that, and we should help get her a little, and we did. And we went back to the partners and we got her some more. So I love
that what
happy.
You just said it, because I think that there's advice in there, Barb, right? That advocating, I love that. So for the women or anybody who's listening to us right now, when you're negotiating, that line that she just said about, I'm advocating for myself, like I would advocate for our clients. Exactly. I think that that's a really nice way of putting a button on your negotiations too, right? It's like, I'm working hard on behalf of myself because I worked this hard on behalf of our customers, our clients, our partners, whomever it might be. I like that as an angle, so to speak.
And you need to be an advocate.
Absolutely.
You need to be an advocate.
I think women tend to just, show their gratitude in moments like that instead of kind of standing up and advocating for themselves.
And I've seen the same thing in healthcare.
Of course.
Every patient deserves an advocate. And when the doctors say, nothing we can do, we'll get to it in 2 weeks. No, you need to advocate for your family and your friends and say, no, I want them to get the best care possible. Right. So in every situation, you need to be an advocate.
That's great advice. Don't take it.
Exactly.
Push harder.
Exactly.
So, okay, I think we're getting close to our lightning round. Is that true, Liz?
Yeah, I think that would be total fun.
Okay. So I'm going to pop one at you, Barb. I want to ask you, give us one word to describe women leaders today.
I would say brave.
Brave. I
would
brave.
say brave because, and especially in the political context, you can't back down from a fight. And unfortunately, with the country being polarized, there is a little bit of expecting backlash, and you can't be afraid of the backlash. You've got to be brave, and you've got to stand up.
That's a good one in the world of social media. All right. Well, here's another one. Best advice you ever got?
I would just say be real. Be real.
Be real. I love that. The authenticity. When the interwebs first came out, I purchased the URL authenticity.com, right? Because of my passion for being real. I should have held on to it. I could have made a mint.
Yes.
But I didn't, because who knew? I may be brave, but not always smart about those things.
Right.
But okay, so I'm going to say, you said brave, be real. Now, what gives you hope for the future for women? What do you think you see changing? You've been 15 years doing your work with the equal pay. What do you hope about for the future for women?
I think what I still see in women is care and concern for the rest of the world, for children, for minorities, for being against war. I don't know too many women that would send their children into battle, and it's just not there. And if we do step up, we have these marches which are peaceful. I love that. And I also see more women entering politics and getting involved in politics that can speak for the rest of us and hopefully make change and make the world a better place.
Yeah, and from your lips to God's ear. Absolutely. We need more of that for sure. Well, Barb, we can't thank you enough for being on the show today. You've imparted amazing advice and wisdom. You really owned up to our title. You got lots of words of wisdom. So thank you for being here. We truly appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, and I love what you women do. So keep it up.
Thank you. Because when women support women, incredible things can happen, folks, right?
And hey, I have an idea of how to support women. If you're listening to this episode right now or watching it on YouTube, share it with a friend, share it with a colleague. Let's get it out there, everybody. We would love your help and your support for everybody to get Barbara's wisdom today.
So listen, review, subscribe to our newsletter, kick-ass-women.com. Just a little dash, not actually spelling the word hyphen, okay? So check it out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Mary. We'll
Thanks,
see you all
Barb.
next time.